Good evening, everybody. This week's reflection is based around Luke 15, verses 3 to 7, the lost sheep. I wonder how many of you have experienced the frustration, the irritation, and sometimes the absolute exasperation when the unforgivable happens. The washing machine has eaten all lost stock. Now, I know this sounds ridiculous and ludicrous, but you find yourself fretting and asking questions endlessly, trying to solve the mystery. Where can the missing sock be? It was in the washing basket, and then you carried it down and you put it in the washing machine, and it hasn't been found en route. You know it can't have walked away on its own or been spirited away by the washing fairy. Then why is it that we get so agitated about the lost sock? I mean, I know it's annoying to have lost one half of a particularly attractive pair of socks, but really, in the grand scheme of things, I'm sure you have other socks that would do. Yet we spend pointless time searching for the answer instead of deciding what to do with the sock that is left. In Luke, as an author, we find a professional who might have had many answers to lots of questions because he was a doctor. He was a great traveller and an historian. He never met Jesus, but he spent 4 years talking to witnesses and researching the life of Jesus and then writing it all down. It seems only right then that when Luke recorded the parables that begin chapter 15, that they should be about being lost and found, as the early readers of Luke were searching for answers themselves, as they had not known Jesus either, unlike the early Christians. The trilogy of the lost sheep, the lost coin and the prodigal son all cover aspects of being lost, which have a deeper meaning than the act of just being physically found. If we consider the coin and the sheep, these are objects which depend upon someone finding them, while the prodigal son asks for forgiveness, hence he is found, and his father rejoices at his return. The Christian journey is not easy, because it invites us all to respond to the most difficult of temptations, just as we heard of Jesus being tempted last Sunday. It's not easy because we try to make some sense of something that's beyond our experiences and our understanding. We are asked to turn to Jesus and trust in his love and not be afraid. Yet, when we find ourselves in dark places or situations, the questions crowd in. During this pandemic, I doubt I'm not the only one to wonder why such a thing has happened and to moan about the personal sacrifices we've all had to make. Jesus asks us to go beyond the dark place and search for hope. When he was in the wilderness trying to understand who he was and what was expected of him, he must have also had the same questions running round his head, but Jesus had ringing in his head the words spoken at his baptism. You are my beloved, you are my son, and with you I am well pleased. It is this affirmation of love that sustains him and takes him forward to his destiny. He was lost when he went into the wilderness, but was found when he came out. But what about the sheep and the coin being lost and found? When Jesus chose to sit amongst the tax collectors and sinners, he had committed the ultimate social gaffe. He was scorned by the scribes because Jesus thought it appropriate to sit at table with such loathsome and unholy of men. The sinner of the day might just have been someone who had been unable to keep all of the 613 laws of Moses, with more added by religious leaders along the way. A sinner was just someone who maybe gave up trying to obey all the laws. And if we applied the same criteria to ourselves, I'm sure at times we would find ourselves outcasts as well. But Jesus knew what it was to be human and how hard it was, and accepted that people erred and strayed like lost sheep, but were found if they acknowledged their faults and asked for forgiveness. In Paul's letter to Timothy, he is amazed at the fact that though he considered himself to be a sinner and blasphemer, God had chosen him to take his new religion forward. It was because Paul saw his own faults and repented that God showed him the ultimate grace in accepting him into his fold. Yet, unfazed, Jesus goes on to tell the parable of the shepherd searching for his lost sheep. He again seems to be flaunting all that by the Jewish holy men was regarded as not being religious. Shepherds were regarded as the lowest of the low and not to be associated with. They were a necessary evil. And yet, here was Jesus espousing their virtues in searching for the lost sheep. When Jesus asked, "Which one of you, having 100 sheep?" Well, he was talking to the scribes and Pharisees, and note he did not actually call them shepherd by name. The very thought of putting them in the role of a shepherd would have been offensive to them. Pharisees or scribes would never become shepherds, nor would they ever like to be thought of as being one. I think perhaps it was because Jesus used this as an example that it makes it so strong. The scribes thought they were so worthy and therefore the others did not matter. But Jesus wanted to get the point across that in being so selective, there was a risk that ultimately each person would only consider themselves, and they would themselves become the singular entity, and then who would be left to rescue and find them when they needed help. So the story is for them to realise that they're not self-sufficient. Everyone needs someone sooner or later, and the so-called sinners in the group listening and eating with Jesus were already found. The emphasis on pushing the accepted boundaries was something that Jesus repeated throughout his ministry. So, back to the lost sheep. Were the critics right to condemn the action that left the 99 other sheep alone and untended for the sake of one sheep? I remember Mr. Spock in one of the Star Trek films, who was in mortal danger because he'd entered a flooded nuclear chamber, saying as he approached death, "Logically, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one." And this would seem to contradict what we have heard about the need to find the lost sheep, the one. However, in a later film, Spock is reminded of his claim to logic when he turns it on his head and breaks the cosmic laws to save one crewman at the risk to many, and suggests that sometimes we must do the human thing, not the logical thing, and put the needs of the few or the one first. Jesus was clear that in finding the lost sheep, the value placed on all others increased, because one day we might be the one who is lost, and who wouldn't want God to seek us out? Jesus wanted people to realise that, criticise though they might, God was valued each and every individual, and so must we value each and every person. If you consider yourself righteous and blameless and valued only your own worth, you could be described as being the never lost. And I wonder if Jesus, when he was extolling the virtue of finding the lost sheep, they suddenly realised that in a twist of events, that as the shepherd left the 99 sheep to their own fate, they themselves might become lost themselves if God was ever to forsake them. In most pictures of the parable of the shepherd and the lost sheep, it is remarkable to note that nowhere in any of the pictures did the 99 never lost sheep make an appearance. The Oxford English Dictionary defines lost as meaning not knowing where you are or how to get to a place. I think we've all said at some time, "I've lost my way," or I got lost. Isn't it wonderful then that God values us all and will strive to find us, and that when we come back to him we will feel owned and held in his loving arms, and we will know where we are, and crucially we will know where our journey will take us. Just as we were overjoyed when we found the lost sock, so God finds pleasure when he restores what was lost and we return to him. His abundant ability to celebrate is the beginning and the end of everything we should remember when we feel afraid or lost on our way. Over these last 12 months, we've all lost something very precious, and I doubt we really appreciated it, and that was our freedom to act however we chose. We lost our freedom to be with family and friends and others, and we lost the ability to go to church. A small price to pay in retrospect to keep others safe. But as Jesus struggled with the temptation, so we must now work hard at not giving in to the temptation to do what we want when we're so close to the finishing line. Perhaps during this Lent we can think of all the things we have lost or surrendered, and reflect on how we feel about life now and the things we lost, and let's see if they've changed. In that encounter with God, in that place, in that dark place, we will see the reality of who we are, and we will see the reality of who God is and what is being asked of us. During this Lent then, let's watch, listen and pray. Let's look for directed instruction on how we should be, so that we don't get lost. Let us together stay strong, together help each other, and together look towards Easter with a joyful and grateful heart. Amen.